Okay, buckle up because this story is a wild ride through the neon-lit chaos of a New Orleans nightclub, a world of rap rivalries, and a justice system under pressure. Night of Chaos, the Platinum Club incident, the early hours of January 12, 2002. The Platinum Club on Manhattan Boulevard is thumping. We're talking 200, maybe 300 people packed in, music pulsing. Suddenly, the vibe shatters. Screams, panic. A hectic state, as Deputy Brian Singleton described it, arriving to find a crowd flooding out. Inside, through the haze and confusion, he found 16-year-old Steve Thomas. The young man, an aspiring rapper himself, a fan of the very Miller brothers whose world he just collided with, was down. A single, devastating mark on his chest. He couldn't speak. Despite efforts, Steve Thomas wouldn't make it. The club doors were locked. Detectives swarmed, trying to get answers. But a wall of silence met them. "Didn't see anything," was the chorus, the reluctant witness. "I was scared." Darnell Jordan, a security guard at the Platinum Club, was there. He saw a massive brawl erupt, 15-20 people on one person. Steve Thomas was on the ground, trying to shield himself. Darnell rushed in, even grabbing a well-known figure in the chaos, Corey Miller, a.k.a. C-Murder, telling him to chill out. Miller seemed to agree, Darnell said, but then moved towards the fray. Then a single, sharp pang. Darnell didn't see an item in Miller's hand before, but he saw a flash from the end of Miller's arm, right where it reached into the pile of people. He believed whatever flashed was in Miller's hand. In the aftermath, Miller and his group vanished. Darnell initially clammed up. He admitted later he was terrified. "I was scared," he testified, fearing what Miller and his clique might do. He knew Detective Kevin Nichols, who worked details at the club, and a few minutes after the incident whispered to him, "C-Murder did it." But officially, he denied knowing. The fear was real. A concerning phone call from a club owner solidified that fear, pushing him to finally tell detectives everything, identifying Miller in a photo lineup. "It was the right thing to do," he said, thinking of Steve Thomas's grieving father. Another voice from the shadows heard what his people could do. Years passed. Then came Kenneth Jordan. He was also at the Platinum Club that fateful night. He remembered Miller and his entourage, about 10-15 people, bypassing security wands. He saw the fight. A group wearing CP3, Calliope Project hoodies, a nod to Miller's roots, swarming Steve Thomas after he'd rapped. Kenneth stated Miller wasn't throwing punches, just watching. But then Kenneth testified. After the fight subsided, he was just 5 or 6 feet away when he saw Miller stand over Steve Thomas. Then that sound, so loud it rung his ears, and he saw fire come from the object. He too ran, petrified. "I was scared for my life," he explained. "I heard what Miller's people could do." It wasn't until years later, when dealing with the tragic loss of his own child, that he found the courage to come forward. "I knew how it felt to lose a child," he said, positively identifying Miller in court. The defense, a different story. Corey Miller proclaimed his innocence. He admitted being at the club but said he was talking to the DJ when the pang went off and was immediately pushed out. His defense team brought forth their own witnesses. Keshawn Scott saw the stomping, heard the pang, but insisted Miller wasn't involved. Vance LaFrance knew Miller wasn't fighting, didn't see who was responsible for the flash. Vanessa Henry claimed Miller was behind her, moving her aside when the sound erupted. She did say the fighters were yelling Calliope and CP3. Hashim Smith said Miller was in the DJ booth. He saw someone lean in and cause the flash, but was 100% certain it wasn't Miller. The trial, whispers and shadows, the trial itself was a pressure cooker. The prosecution hinted that witnesses were scared, that Miller was fishing for information about who was cooperating, suggesting an atmosphere of intimidation. Defense attorneys fiercely objected, arguing these were baseless claims designed to prejudice the jury. Was it fair to talk about a climate of fear without direct proof Miller threatened anyone? The judge mostly allowed it, saying it explained why witnesses might change their stories. Then came jury selection, a whole other drama. The prosecution used 8 of its 12 strikes on black prospective jurors. Miller's team cried foul, a Batson challenge, arguing it was racial discrimination. The state offered race-neutral reasons. One juror listened to rap, though others who did weren't struck. Another supposedly said she couldn't judge, though the record contradicted this. The judge ultimately accepted the state's reasons. The verdict room, pressure and prayer deliberations were intense. The 911 tapes. The jury wanted to re-listen to the 911 calls made that night. One caller, Donald, couldn't identify who was responsible. Was this Darnell before he officially pointed the finger? The judge initially said yes, then no, believing the law forbade it. A point of contention. Deadlock and duress. Notes flew from the jury room. We can't move forward. Then, a juror was reportedly found reading a Bible, quoting scriptures, wanting off. The judge instructed them to stick to the evidence and remove the Bible. A false verdict, a guilty verdict came, but one juror wrote on her slip she'd voted yes, but under duress to get out of here. Invalid, the judge sent them back. Finally, on August 11, 2009, a second verdict, guilty, but it wasn't unanimous. 10 jurors said guilty, 2, both African Americans, said not guilty. Corey Miller was sentenced to life, no chance of parole. The appeal was justice served. Miller appealed, arguing the witness intimidation talk poisoned the trial, the jury selection was flawed, and the jury's pressured, non-unanimous verdict wasn't fair. He even questioned if non-unanimous verdicts should be constitutional at all. The appellate court reviewed everything. They acknowledged the state's comments about fear, but largely found they were to explain witness behavior, not direct evidence of Miller's bad acts. They upheld the jury selection and the judge's handling of the intense deliberations. The conviction stood. A story of music, a life cut short, and a justice system grappling with fear, conflicting accounts, and the heavy weight of decision. What do you think? Was the full picture ever truly revealed?